Hey everybody, Zee Garcia here, and today we're taking a look at a two-player abstract strategy game called Thrive. In this game, each player is supposed to represent a lotus flower. You have 6 pieces. Those are meant to be seed pods, and you are trying to eliminate all of your opponent's pieces on the board. Save one. Then you win. If you're down to one piece, you're done, okay? So that's what you are doing. On your turn, you are going to move a piece, ideally landing on an opponent's piece, removing it from the table, and then you improve your pieces by taking 2 pegs and sliding them into the holes on your pods, therefore increasing the places they can move to. All of your pieces begin being able to move 1 step forward, but of course over the game you are going to manipulate where new pegs show up to give you new possibilities for movement. That's what the game's all about. So let's go ahead and take a look at it, okay? I'm also going to, by the way, let me grab it right here. I'm also going to show you this little box, which is an expansion to Thrive. It's called Pond Life. It doesn't come in the box if you buy it at a retailer. But it's in here. It's in this one. There's a spot for it in the box even. So I might as well throw it in and talk about it. I'll tell you what I think of this little thing here. So yeah, that's it. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Here is the game set up and ready to begin. On your turn, you are going to move one of your pieces to a legal position, and then you are going to add 2 pegs to any of your pieces and any open spots in those pieces. The red peg in each of these represents the space where the piece itself is, and the natural colored pegs represent where they can go. You are going to capture your opponent's pieces by landing on them, and when you reduce your opponent to a single piece, you win the game. So I might start by moving this piece here, and then perhaps adding 2 pegs. Perhaps I'll add one there, and I'll add one to this one here. Then my opponent would go, they might do that, and then they might perhaps add one here, perhaps add one there. Comes back to me. I could move this piece now there and threaten that piece by adding one right there. You have to make sure you go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, okay, there. And then I add one somewhere else. I'll put one here. Then my opponent is going to perhaps move this one out of that threatened piece and put a peg there threatening this one, perhaps a peg on that one, and so on. Again, now if I myself capture this one, I could do that. I can jump over pieces like so. Then I can remove this one, add my 2 pegs, and it's my opponent's turn, and so on. That's going to continue. Now this expansion right here, Pond Life, is not technically included in the game. I think you got it if you backed the Kickstarter. You might be able to find it elsewhere. But there is a spot for it to fit right in the box right there. So I'm going to go ahead and include it in this just to give you an overview of what comes included in that. But be aware, if you buy this game, just the game itself doesn't include this. This is something above and beyond that. So there you go. Also, I might as well go ahead and mention that there is a baggie in here. I guess in case you want to throw all the pieces in there and then just take this bag instead of taking the box. It's a nicely made bag. It has its own custom pattern there, so this is nice. It's got a little nice heft to it, so it's a good one. All right, so let's take a look at this Pond Life. It's basically a little modular expansion. Gives you a few different things. So let's talk about them. The first one here I'm going to talk about is different setups for the game, where you're going to shuffle up these cards. You're going to reveal 2 of them, like so, and then you are going to use one to set up what the board looks like this, and the other one to set up where the pegs begin, okay? And they come in all sorts of different ways. This is standard. This one, they've shifted them over to one side, which, believe me, will totally mess with your mind. Because, well, the center is not on the center of the piece, so it'll really throw you off. This one's shifted back 1 space. This one begins by being able to leap forward 2, but that's its standard move, and so on. And then these are all of the different setups. So again, this is just going to change the way the game is put in play at the very beginning of the entire thing. Next up, we've got these special ability cards. All right, you're going to shuffle these up. You're going to give every player 2 of them. And then from those two, they will keep the one they want to use. These are special abilities, like I said, basically unique player powers that you may trigger before or after you move a piece. And if you do so, then you only get to add that many pegs to your pieces that round. So if you do this one, no pegs at all that round. This one says, take all pegs from a captured piece and place them into the piece that captured it. Pretty powerful, especially if you can target a one that your opponent's been focusing on. This one says, choose a piece and move all of its non-center pegs one hole in a chosen direction. Okay. This one, choose two of your pieces and swap them, and then you get to add a peg. This one allows you to place pegs normally. It says, move your rock to any empty board space. What is your rock? Well, they give you these little wooden pieces, and you put it there at the beginning of your first turn, and then that blocks that space. And this one lets you move it elsewhere, so nobody can end up there. And there are a few different rocks in the piece, all tied to one of the cards. So there you go. That's what those are. It's a nice way to, mix up the game, but it sort of feels like it goes against the heart, against the grain of what this game is about, which is a perfect information, very specific, abstract game. And this is not hidden by any means, but you then get into the situations where you feel like, wow, that's a really good power versus my power, And so that's no longer one of those everything is exactly the same for both sides kind of abstract games. But it's okay. It'll add some flavor and some interest if you want to mix this up a little bit. And then lastly, you've got multiplayer, which is going to use these colored pegs in order to change how many players can play and really change the game. Let me show you. So here's what the game would look like set up for 4 players using, again, the pegs that come in here. And now these 2 players are using the same piece colors, but they're not related. You are looking at player colors would be these pegs, okay? So red, black pegs, white pegs, these blue pegs. And on your turn, you are going to move a piece to a legal place. You are then going to score that piece, and then you will add 2 pegs to your pieces, any of your pieces. So what does score mean? Well, there's no capture when you play like this. Okay, the way that works is anything that would then be threatened by you when you arrive there. So let's say, I know this isn't right, but let's say I move this and then I score this piece. Well, checking this peg right here, if I go 1, 2, 3, I go 1, 2, 3, I am threatening this piece. I'm going to score a peg from it. So I take one of these pegs, I keep it in front of me, and then I add 2 pegs to my pieces. And whoever gets to a certain number of these pegs that they have captured first is going to win the game. You can, if you threaten something and it's only got the center peg, then you will remove that thing and keep this. And this will count as a tiebreaker. Someone's colored piece will count as a tiebreaker if there is a tie at the end for whoever captured the most of these. But that's basically how that works. Unfortunately, they don't give you 3 of these bases in 2 different colors, right? Another 6 bases, 3 in, I don't know, white and 3 in purple would have done it. But instead, you got to just deal with these pegs. And again, I'll talk about this later, but they're definitely not always uniform, these pegs. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell. But these 2 pegs here certainly do not have the same size. The peg part is pretty off. This guy does not want to go into these bases. That's not going to work out. He's not well shaped. So there you go. That is everything that comes in here. The few different variants that are going to be provided in this Pond Life box. But again, this is extra. I already showed you at the beginning the 1 versus 1 game, which is what you get in the base game of Thrive. Let's go back up top. Let me tell you what I think of it. So that is Thrive. Overall, I think this one's okay. It's an attractive game. It's one I thought was, pretty fun playing, but it didn't quite grab me as I was hoping it would. There are a lot of abstract games that upon playing them, they sort of sink a hook in me anyway, and I feel like I continue thinking about it after the fact. I continue sort of pondering what I could have done differently, what I should have done differently, what did I not see coming. The game sort of reveals itself over multiple plays, And this one didn't really feel that way. You kind of know what the trick is, even as it's explained to you. You don't even have to play the game to understand. Ah, okay, I get it. I see what's going on here. And then you play and it gives you what you were expecting. Does it, give you moments where you can trap your opponent? Yeah, sure. It does do those things. But it generally, I think, does what it sets out to do, which is good. It just didn't quite grab me. So let's break it down, shall we? We're going to start with, I'm just going to go down the list. I'm going to start with theme. I have a rule where for abstract games, I don't knock the game on the theme too much. The game's theme is there, on an abstract anyway, to largely provide window dressing, I think, to give you some sort of setting, an ambiance more than anything else. So while this makes very little sense, it doesn't matter. It's an abstract game. I'm not going to knock it for that. I don't think it does an amazing job with the theme. I don't think the theme revolutionizes what I think about themes on abstract games, but I also don't hate it. It's all right, The aesthetics is really where that focus goes when I'm thinking of an abstract game. And this one's pretty good. It's not perfect. I do have an issue, but overall it's pretty good. These pieces are interesting. They feel like non-sudsy soap is kind of what these feel. These pieces are plastic. I don't know what kind of plastic, but they are plastic. But they have an interesting finish to them. And I do like them. I think they're neat. They look cool. They're just kind of interesting pieces. They do have a flower kind of imprinted there. And my issue revolves around the pegs and these pieces. They don't always look great. And so as you are putting pegs in these, the pegs are quite a bit off of them, but they don't always stand at the same height. So they start looking real porcupine-y sometimes, with all the pegs no longer looking very uniform, but kind of pointing slightly this way and that way. So I don't like that. I kind of wish the pegs had been stumpier pieces, shorter pieces, with a uniform top on these. Just flat, well-drilled pieces that are uniform. And then the geometry of the game holds together a little bit better. Again, I'm putting that much into aesthetics because it's an abstract game and I don't do the theme. I do like the board. It's one of these soft fabric boards. And I think this one's good. It stays put, probably because it's got these, heavy pieces on it, and they have a nice sliding bottom. So this works well. I like this quite a bit. I think it's a good idea. It looks beautiful. The illustrations all over the game are actually very attractive. So I do like it for the most part, except for the pegs, like I said. The replay value, I think, is okay. Again, the game will reveal some little sort of, trickery where you can pin an opponent in a corner and that sort of thing upon first play, maybe second play. But it just didn't hook me. It didn't wow me with the depth that I simply couldn't fathom and couldn't perceive upon the first few plays. No, you'll kind of know what it does and do that and try to do that well. Try to trick your opponent, but this board is fairly small, so therefore you don't have that many pieces that are actively in the battle, so to speak. You'll maybe be able to get 3 that are key players. And then as maybe one gets eliminated, you'll have a respite round where you can bring another one into the fray. But your opponent can safely ignore probably 1 or 2 of your pieces at any given moment, so there's not that sort of, that web of intrigue doesn't quite form for me, okay? That's also, I guess, game arc. The game arc I also think is okay. The building up a piece or a couple of pieces with a lot of pegs make those pieces very scary, and I like that about it. But then it gets eliminated and you get set way back because you've been putting a lot of energy into that one, and so now you're playing checkers a little bit for a turn or two, right? The opposite of that is spreading the pegs around, and then you don't really have any heavy hitters. Also putting them all on the same piece, if that piece gets eliminated, you are set back mathematically more than another way, that if you spread them. So that's, again, nice, but they're binary choices for the most part. Do this or that. There isn't a tree here that develops with many different branches and branches off of those. That's how I felt anyway. Ease of play is quite high. I like the ease of play here. I think it's good. The game is extremely straightforward to play. In fact, you could set this up on the table, put all the starting pegs into everything. You, as the one who knows the game, take the first turn, explain what you did, tell your opponent, okay, now you do what I did, move a piece, and then add 2 pegs. You're done. I mean, it's really that quick, so I like that about it. And the game will be over in, 15 minutes or so, and you can just play again now that they really get it. Lastly, tactics, luck, strategy. It's not bad. I think it sort of edges into a positive here for me because there are cool turns in this. Every now and then you can do a neat move where you put your opponent in a position where 2 things are being threatened and they cannot move or save both. They might trade 1 for 1 and then you can capture the other one. So you took 2 of theirs to the 1 of yours you lost. So there's some of that, and that's fun. I enjoy it. Let's talk a little bit about this here, Pond Life. There are, I guess you can say, 3 modules in it, right? You've got alternate setups, special player powers, and then multiplayer. The only one I really like are the special player powers. I think it's neat. I wouldn't want to do it all the time because it does kind of bend the feel of the game in many ways. But the other 2 I just don't care for. Multiplayer plays differently. And I don't just mean because you have more people to think about. I mean that the game is actually different. It's not the same game at its core. And then the alternate setups don't do much for me. And I really don't like the visual cue that the center of your tile not being where you are situated. The way that works, it really messes with my mind anyway. And so I know it allows for more, say, lateral movement if your peg is off center, that sort of thing. I just don't like the way it looks. I don't like the way that works. And it just also feels like not a big deal. So you did an alternate setup, Pretty soon you can modify that anyway, so it doesn't matter. The other setup, standard setup, works fine for me. I got no problem with that one. So I don't know if I would say that for one module, which is, how many cards is that? There are 15. So for me, this is 15 cards that have unique player powers. That's neat, and if it was included, I'd be like, all right, cool, but I don't know if I would seek this out on its own, to add it in. Unless the game absolutely grabs you and you really want to try multiplayer with it, or you want to mix it up, I suppose. You can probably just do that. Just do a different arrangement as long as it's symmetrical, and you're good to go. So there you go. Overall, for me, this is going to get a 6 out of 10. Again, I think it's decent. I think it's well done. The only thing I don't like is the pegs. I wish they would have gone with something, a little bit different for that. But it's an attractive game. It's one that's going to look pretty on the table. It's one that is quick playing, very easy to play. It's one that might be a good one to introduce to someone who is not very much into abstracts, but doesn't want to get into it with like checkers, This is, in many ways, could be eye-opening for someone like that, who could look at it and go, oh, that's neat. These abstract games these days do different stuff, huh? Yeah, they do. So that could be a good one, For me, what this reminds me most of, actually, is an abstract game from, 20 years ago at least, called Octi, or Octi, I don't know. And it's the same thing. You have pieces and you add on these arrows, and the arrows are how you can move. It's that game, It kind of feels like that game. It's been a long time since I played it. That's what it is. So, again, 6 out of 10 from me. Not recommending against it necessarily. I just don't see it being one that I'm gonna hang on to. It's not an abstract I keep thinking about or I keep clamoring to play. So that is that. Thanks everybody for checking this guy out with me. I'm Zee Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.